All right. It's just like the last interview, man, with the camera is going to like
It's
freak
gonna keep
people out.
gonna keep chasing me.
Oh God. I might need to do some good editing on this one.
I don't want it to follow me, but it does.
Oh man, that's going to throw me for a loop. It's a good thing I'm having a bit of a bear day today. But anyway, how's it going, man? I just wanted to have you back. It's been a while since I've done a benzo video, and
Yeah,
you
yeah.
and I are both at 6 years. So just want to check in, see how you're doing.
Yeah, I'm doing okay. I just got out of well, I'm getting out of a really pretty rough wave, from stress and just anxiety stuff and whatnot. So, a lot of life changes in the last year. So I'm just trying to get through all that. But I'm doing a little better right now. Just got a lot of well, I'm not gonna go through all the friggin' symptoms right now, but just got the typical DPDR fog head going, and but my body's feeling a little better, so getting work done. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. We've spoken recently, and you and I both got hit really hard with viruses.
Oh yeah.
Like you got the big C, like the pandemic C.
Yeah.
I think I may have gotten it. I'm not quite sure. I'm sort of like on the fence a little bit, but I'm pretty sure I did get it. And I recently got the stomach flu, and I've been learning a lot about how viruses and getting the jabs affect us in terms of like creating these like immune nervous system cascade responses of like histamine and mast cells and this and that kind of thing. And it's like it's one of the worst things to set you off in like a massive setback.
Yeah, it
And
sure is. Oh my
yeah,
god.
can you tell us a little bit about your setbacks with your viruses you got?
Yeah, it was end of October I got COVID. It was pretty much like the 24th because it was like a day before my birthday. I'm just like, oh man, right before my
Yeah.
birthday. Thanks. Anyway, so I got that, and um yeah, I was the sickest. I mean, I can't even recall ever being like, what I call quote human sick. Because it's not the regular benzo, so COVID it got me good. I mean, I don't even know how I should say it because people just tear me a new asshole because of it when I say I got an what is it called? The shot or whatever.
Yeah.
But it was like, geez, a long time ago. So I don't know if it would have ever helped. But um after that I started to feel a
Dude,
little
your camera's driving me nuts, man. It's
dude,
driving
I
me
don't know
nuts.
why it does that. It's like what is this like bobbling back and forth? I
Oh,
wonder if
it's killing me. It's like giving me a seizure right now. It's like the
I
worst thing for people in benzo withdrawal.
well, I think I got it for to stop it. All right. I think I did it.
Yeah, there we go.
All right. Sorry about that, everyone. That is irritating. Didn't know I had that option. Anyway, so after COVID, which was about 2 weeks, um, I started to feel a little bit better, but I was super disoriented. I was like there's a few of the things that were just like lasting and lasting were disorientation and major fatigue, and those were like two of the worst. And then after, I would say right after Christmas, I got the flu. And then, I mean, it was just as bad as COVID, except not the bizarre symptoms like of COVID. Like COVID, it just feels different. It feels weird, and it feels like with COVID, I got a fever that would be like 103, and then it would go down to like 98, and then it would go to 101, then go back down to 98, and then it would go up and down for days on end. It was so bizarre. But the flu was very typical, but very brutal. So on an already, screwed up nervous system, you're just battling again. So then once that went away, this whole time I still had this disorientation, which I still have a little bit, but it depends how I feel. If I'm having worse days, the disorientation comes in more. but my days have been a little bit better, so it's been better. The fatigue, that's what everybody talks about after COVID anyway, so some can relate, I guess. The fatigue was insanely brutal, and it's still really hard, but it was one of those fatigues where you just can't get up. You just can't. And it's just dreadful. And you know how being really tired just makes all your symptoms just way worse, So I would say I'm probably, here it is, end of March. So I would say I'm probably 60% feeling better from COVID. I'm
Yeah.
trying to get back to my baseline. I mean, there was a lot more symptoms and all that too, but I'm just, the major ones were that disorientation in my head was so insane. I just felt like I was a complete drunk, but like worse than that, just bizarre. Like I've been drugged, and I still get it, but it's not as bad. So I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I got slammed with stomach flu last week, and man, the day I woke up with the stomach flu, I was on a different planet. It was so weird. Like my heart was just pounding out of my chest. Everything hurt. Just the anxiety for that day and like about a week after was like acute benzo withdrawal type anxiety, like akathisia.
Yeah.
I couldn't sit still. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't do anything. I would sleep for like 2 hours, wake up with like a jolt, and take me an hour to get back to sleep. Like it was just pure hell.
Yeah.
And
It's very chemical feeling, that anxiety. It's crazy.
yeah, exactly. Um, Funny enough, you're probably going to kill me for this, but I'm sort of going to be the guinea pig for everybody here. But someone recommended I try out this drug, and it's a prescription, and I'm so anti-prescriptions, and I promise I would never take another prescription again. But I've been doing a lot of research on this. I think it's a safer one. And it doesn't seem to interact with anything. This guy right here, I'm not recommending this same one, but I'm going to try this out. Cromolyn Sodium.
What is
It's
it?
kind of like an allergy med, but kind of not. It's about stabilizing your mast cells so they don't release histamine as easily.
Huh.
And it doesn't work on liver enzymes. So that's what makes me a little bit more hopeful about it. It doesn't cross the blood-brain barrier, like nothing like that. So I'm not having any negative reactions with it so far. I can't tell if it's like doing anything, but apparently it takes like a month for it to work. So I'm going to keep taking this like liquid solution and see if it does anything.
And it was
But
actually a prescription? Like you have to get it from your doctor?
it's a prescription. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know if it works. I just have one guy tell me about it, and he said it was like life changing for him. And I did a bit of research on it. I was taking a look. I was like, it might be worth a go. I'm trying it anyway, but I am feeling a little bit better. I don't think it's from that, because even before I started taking that, I was starting to come a little bit off of the stomach flu craziness a little bit. Like I'm still not back to my baseline, but like I'm definitely having like more normal. It's kind of like just normal, almost normal baseline crappiness, And we were talking yesterday about how you never have appreciation for that, crappy benzo withdrawal type baseline until you get like really sick. And you're
Yeah.
like, man, I wish I just felt crappy like I did before, and not like
Yeah.
insane out of my mind like I have been.
Yeah. I've been fighting to get back to that crappy baseline, and it's like, yeah, it's a comfort zone. It's not the best and it still sucks, but it's like it's tolerable and livable and not very fun. But yeah, after you go through these major waves, I mean, like the last wave I had coming out of all this stuff, it took a little while for it to come on, but it lasted a good while. And now my baseline, like I'm not even at my baseline. I'm like just relieved I'm not in that hell I was in. But my baseline seems so forgiving now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, it sucks. Like, yeah, I mean, baseline could be anywhere from like, for me, anywhere from like 40% to maybe even upwards of like 70 or 80% on some good days. If I'm having a really good window, it's probably usually falls somewhere between there. But I would say that on my bad days, like last week, every day I felt like I was like operating at 10%. And
Yeah, that's pretty much what there was one day. Well, there was a couple days, but there was one main day in the wave that I went through that I could say functionality was almost impossible. Percent wise, yeah, it was probably a 10% day. But I honestly, I haven't had a 10% day because I can always force things. But that one was rough. And I would say that that was, relatable to coming off of benzos. It was so bad. And sometimes like I try to tell myself not to overthink how it happened. And of course you have to think about it because you don't want to do it again. But I'm like, I don't do anything different the last, I've been doing this for almost 6.5 years now. I don't do anything to mess myself up, on purpose. And I usually don't eat new foods just for the sake of it. So, it's just, you have to just wonder how stress, how stress plays into all this. And I mean, obviously everybody knows don't get stressed out because it does make things worse. But I've noticed, and of course we've talked about how stress compounds on over and over and over. And I've noticed like I had one stressful incident and then it didn't make me feel well. And then another stressful thing happened and all of a sudden things got a little worse. And then something else happened and it just kept on getting worse and worse and worse until I had to tell everybody I'm not doing anything anymore, not till this calms down. I'm not going out because I can't afford the stress, you know, almost getting hit by a car or whatever, any kind of stress that can happen. I just couldn't afford doing it anymore because it got to a point that I couldn't handle it. I guess I could handle it because I'm still here, but it felt like I couldn't, and it was very severe. And then you have to try to explain to the people around you what's going on. And all of a sudden now you're pretty much debilitated again. And they're like, well, how is that? It's been over 6 years. It's like, maybe you need help, Dan. Maybe you need to take this or that, or take that new supplement or whatever Scott's taking or whatever. And I just
yeah.
did not mess with it.
Yeah.
But
Well, you know what though, man, we should probably, like, for people who haven't seen our videos before, we should probably just reiterate that we're both on antidepressants and
oh yeah,
we're trying to taper off of that. So that's why we're in this mode 6 years later, still trying to deal with this. I would have healed 4 years ago had I
yeah,
not been on this antidepressant.
me too. And people, it's funny, people like I'm on Remeron and I've been tapering it for the last, I don't know, 4.5 years maybe. And it's been so slow, but my nervous system is so wrecked, and having to work jobs and stuff like that, there is no opportunity to taper higher or more or anything. So it's been absolute hell. If I was never put on this stuff and it was just about benzos, yeah, this would have been, oh man, I would have probably shaved a good 4.5 years off of this, I imagine, you know. But the nervous system just completely scratches, like this medication just constantly scratches your nervous system. And there's
Yeah.
no way for it to, well, it gets better, but it's so slow. And it's just, for me, it's better to get off of it. Now, mind you, also is I should have never been on this medication. If it was something that worked for me, it's a different story, but it doesn't. And it just makes my head and body worse. So it's like, oh, it's just a disaster. The whole thing with getting poly drugged after benzos was terrible. But I've got a ways to go with it. I'm not on a lot now, but it's still, with my lifestyle of trying to work, and I live on my own now and stuff like that, and just trying to be somewhat uh, just to try to have a tolerable life. It's not very conducive to tapering all the time. I don't know. It's been a couple years since I've tapered because I over tapered, what, 2 years ago or something. I doubled my taper thinking I was like going to get off of it faster, and it made everything 100 times worse, and so on. And we could go on and on about this, but in
Yeah.
other words, don't go on. I wouldn't suggest going on an antidepressant if you don't have to.
Yeah, people always ask me that, what so the only reason why I'm taking antidepressant is because my doctor put me on it and convinced me to put me on it while I was going through benzo withdrawal. Here, take this antidepressant. It's going to help you while you're in benzo withdrawal. And
Yeah,
when benzo withdrawal is all over, you'll just easily be able to taper off of it. Don't worry, you're at a low dose. And man, I would say that was even a bigger mistake than getting on the benzos to begin with. Because like I said, it not only has it tripled my time so far of having to go through this withdrawal type syndrome crap, nervous system hell, but I still have many years to go before I get off of this poison.
yeah,
And I think that, like you were saying before, I mean, there's that, but there's other things that like we can't even help. There's just life. Like we have to work. We're still going to deal with stress. We have relationship problems. We have people who die. There's always going to be a virus or something we're going to get hit with every few months or once a
yeah,
year, whatever. There's
yeah,
always something. It's impossible, right? And I think where you and I get so frustrated and where we've called each other so many times, just feeling angry and frustrated, is like every time we feel like, okay, we're finally on the path to healing, whatever, something we get slammed with something.
yeah. And
We have like a breakup or a death in the family or whatever.
yeah, it's always something, and it's nice when it's quiet for a little bit because at least you get a chance to calm down a little bit. But when those things start to just stack on top of each other, and most people are like, "Hey, that's just part of life, we all deal with it." It's like, yeah, but on a compromised nervous system, not everybody has to deal with that. There's only so many, and it is so hard. And luckily, I have people around me that gets that I need breaks and things have to calm down or things will just get out of control. And I've I've heard people say lately that I'm always almost being a psychic about how my days are going to go, and it's partially true. But like if I work a lot or if I get stressed out, I know what's coming because it's been happening for 6 years. And I mean, sometimes, it's like if I have a hard day, sometimes the next day won't be that bad, which is weird and it catches me off guard. But majority of the time, I know what's coming, and it's just a nervous system reaction, and it's hard, and I have to take time off. But with people like us, we have to work. You've got kids, and whatever we're dealing with at the time, sometimes there's really not much time for it, or much time to calm down. I mean, and it's not like we can just meditate for an hour and all of a sudden we're good to go. It's like mine, like with my latest stressors and stuff. I mean, it took a good few weeks, 3 weeks for stuff to start calming down just at all. That's a lot of time just to lay there and just cry about how fucked up my life is.
Hmm.
Or like how 6.5 years later, you're still dealing with the same thing. And it's like, I haven't tapered in 2 years, but stress alone and lifestyle and, of what I've had to go through for, last year and stuff like that, just living on my own now and all that stuff, it's not easy. There's a lot of good things in my life and I'm glad, but it took a lot to get here, and my body still pays for it now. I mean, it's going to be a while, you know, but I'm gonna have to taper eventually and just start getting off this stuff so I can actually heal. but that's what'll work for me. I don't know.
Yeah, but we all heal. Like, I mean, once you get off this stuff, I mean, it's like, yeah, you still have some rough waters ahead, but you will heal eventually, and the nervous system will calm down. I mean, it does for everybody at some point, as long as you just stay out of your body's way and you don't do dumb things like drink or, you know,
Yeah.
maybe taking this prescription like I'm taking. We'll see what happens with this, but um
Yeah.
but yeah, it's one of those things. I think that one of the most important things to have in all this is like have people you could talk to and people who like that like understand, having like supportive people. I mean, I've just relationships for me since all this started, I mean, have been so toxic or toxified by this whole syndrome type thing, and the sickness. And either I've had to cut people out of my life or they've cut me out of their lives, and
Yeah.
that's been really hard. I know that's just a common denominator across everybody. Everyone has relationship issues going through this. And I mean, if you have somebody who understands you and tries to understand, I mean, man, you won the lottery ticket. But
Yeah,
um
it's hard to hold on to relationships, and I'm talking all of them, friends, just loved ones, even family. It's hard because most people at first, they'll be like, they'll be worried for you and try to stand by you, but once time goes by, they get sick of it. They get tired of hearing about it. Even though it's real, they start to not believe it. And I mean, I can guarantee everybody can relate to that. Because it's like after time goes by, all of a sudden these people are like, hey, you know what? Maybe you need to do this. Maybe you need to do that. You didn't try that route. You didn't do this. Not, you can't do everything people want you to do. And at one point I was trying to I'll go to all the specialists and everything like that for a long time just to appease everybody else, even though I knew what was going on. I mean, it was obvious and I already knew doctors weren't going to be able to help me, but I did it for everybody else more or less so they can see, hey, I know what's going on. Hence why there was no answer. And I could be like, see, I told you, I already know what happened. All this crap wasn't, I wasn't dealing with all these symptoms before benzos. Then after benzos, all of a sudden it all happened. I mean, if benzos brought out something else, fine. But I mean, it's, nothing doctors can tell me about. I could spin this around and keep going. I could keep,
yeah, no, I know. Man, I never would have guessed 6 years ago that I would still be here today. And I really blame the Cymbalta, but it's only until recently, and I hate to do a shameless plug, but like, I started that community, and I've really been trying to work on like sort of being more productive towards my healing instead of just sitting back and just waiting for things to come.
yeah,
I mean, I think that like there is at some point, where you have to get up off the couch and just and stop waiting, and because it becomes very destructive after a while, right? Not being productive. And
yeah,
so I'm trying my best to do as much as I can. And I get like I have kids, I still have a job, we all have things that we got to do, but I'm trying to like do the meditating, try and do the visualizations, and trying to like find more gratitude and joy, and just even if I'm having like a really bad day, I try to get out, even if I feel like absolute hell. Yeah, there was a couple days last week where I was just laid up in bed.
yeah.
Uh,
Sometimes you can, but
you just can't function sometimes. But whether it's just like, I don't, just standing outside in the sun, or I don't know, listening to music or whatever. I find that like even if I'm having a really bad day, I just try to do something now, because
yeah,
I'm done just lying around. I'm done just sitting on the couch. I'm done watching TV. I'm done just feeling sorry for myself. And you got to live your life going through this.
yeah. I mean, in being in a really long wave like I was, there was really, and where I live in the Midwest, it's winter. Um, so I I've not a lot of huge opportunities of me getting out walking when it's snowing and freezing. But now that the weather's getting a little better, it'll be easier. But a lot of times, like lately, if I have to go to the post office, go to the store, I usually just sit in my car and listen to music or do anything to where I could at least watch people or do something. It's not ideal, but it's something. So,
Yeah, well, I gotta say though, man, like you more than anyone have gone through like a crap storm. Like, I don't know if I guess there's probably some people watching this who, subscribe to your channel as well and know your whole backstory, but man, you had a rough year last year and you still kept going with your music, you moved. I mean, you're still working. I mean, you're still doing a lot for what you went through. And
yeah.
I
And
think it's like crazy testament to like the human body and like how we're able to make it through the absolute toughest situations, and even though it might feel like we're dying every second of every day, like we are way stronger than we think,
yeah,
it's miraculous. Sometimes I don't know if you feel this way, but like sometimes I look at my life, I'm just like, man, the last 6 years, what I've gone through, like how am I still alive? How am I
yeah,
still alive? And I'm not even the worst case that I know of.
yeah, yeah. I don't know. A lot of people will see the things that I do accomplish, and they'll be like, "Well, he was able to do that, so he's obviously doing really well." But in general, um, I'm obviously going to be doing better than a portion of people, but they also don't see the things that I have to do in order to get to what I'm doing. Or like people aren't feeling what it's like in my head, that I can't even explain the mental anguish I go through and the suicidal ideations and everything. It's just so much involved, and the looping stuff and it's just terrible. There's a lot of these things I don't even talk about anymore because it's like the more I talk about them, is the more I think about it. The more I think about it, the worse things get, and I spiral. So my best bet in all this is I've been just living my life the best I can while I can. I try to make a routine with my job. It's like if I have to go to the grocery store, I go to the grocery store, no matter how screwed up it is walking around there. I do it anyway. And that's kind of what I did from the beginning. Oh gosh, man, I was so ridiculous. I was like, and then I look back going, I probably shouldn't have done as much as I did, especially at the beginning, because I thought it was going to end within a few months. And now we're here 6.5 years later, and I'm still wondering what's going on. But well, now at least I know it's like my job is to get off my antidepressants and just continue doing what I'm doing. And that's what I suggest most people do if they have to. And
Yeah.
sometimes people are okay with their antidepressants. You'd got to do what's right for you. But for you and it's just about getting through every day and surviving it. And, I think it's just hard because people have that vision of, well, they're able to make videos and do this and that. It's like, but it's been 6.5 years. You know what? In 6.5 years, if you're still struggling and struggling, you're going to learn to just kind of push through it, because eventually it's either, like you say, lay on the couch and do nothing and watch TV all day, or just get up and move and do something. If you can't, you
Yeah.
can, but if you can, do it.
Yeah,
So,
no, exactly. Like that's the thing. Like, I've come to learn over time how to function even in the worst moments. Like I could tell you like last week, and people might not believe me because I mean it's the stomach flu, right? Like everyone gets stomach flu, not the end of the world, but it just sent me in the worst hell imaginable. Like I don't can't remember the last time I felt that bad. Like the few days around that period, I just had severe akathisia. I couldn't sit still. But I still had two sick kids to take care of on top of that because they both got the flu as well. And here
yeah,
I was just trying to live. And I was so proud of myself when I came out of that, being like, wow, like I'm surprised I just lived through that. But not only that, but I had two kids to take care of. And I did it. it's insane. It's insane what you could do when you have to, you know?
Yeah. It's really having to push yourself. I mean, like I said, there's always times where there's things you can't do. And I mean, at the beginning of this whole benzo thing, there was a lot of things like now I do that there's no way I could have done. And if somebody said you just have to do it, it would have been near impossible. But as long as you have the ability to do it without it completely destroying you, just do it. Because hopefully people's syndrome when withdrawal syndromes don't last this long, you know.
Yeah,
um
and they don't. I mean, it's just because of our situation with the antidepressants and stuff, and not everyone who's on antidepressants, by the way, has it as severe as we do coming off, right?
that's
Like,
true too. That's true too. I've seen so many. The thing is, I guess it's always gets a little depressing for me, but like I've seen so many people kind of like go in and out of groups and stuff like that, just like, being tortured, and then it's like months later they're so much better doing their thing and they're taking antidepressants. So I mean, it's like it is different for everybody. It really is. When they say everybody's different, it's really true. It's almost like you can't really answer people's questions, when they have them. And I stopped answering a lot of people's questions because I can't say what's going to happen. It's too different.
yeah. I'd say the only thing I could answer without a shadow of a doubt are, well, really only, well, I would say two things. And that would be to avoid alcohol at all costs, because alcohol has never helped anyone going through withdrawal.
Yeah.
um, some people may say that they don't feel it, but it's still prolonging their withdrawal no matter what. And I would say also the food component to some degree. Like, I really don't know anyone who does well in benzo withdrawal, like eating like just absolute junk and like drinking coffee and
Yeah. It
eating
was huge.
cake. And, yeah. So I'd say that like those two things I could answer for everybody that's just unanimous. Like, cut out the crap and, and don't drink alcohol. But
Well, alcohol
uh,
is obviously one of the main ones, and that's just because it hits the same receptors as benzo did. And it's like if something's damaged, you don't want to make it worse. That's all. I mean, if a lot of people, like I've seen a lot of people drink alcohol and be like, yeah, it doesn't bother me at all. Well, that's great. Maybe it's just a different situation for them, but I wouldn't trust that. It's like saying, no, I'm not going to even say what I'm going to say, because it's like, just don't do it. It's I don't want to offend anybody. I'm just, in my position and what I've learned and seen as an admin in one of the big benzo recovery groups, I've seen more and more people get set back, and more people, after they're feeling so much better, but they wanted to go out and have a good time because they felt they deserved it. So they went out for a drink, and here they are in the group again years later going, oh my God, what
yeah.
happened? Yeah, I mean, it's not going to bring you back to like, where you're going to be in withdrawal for years again. But do you really want to sit for the next 6 months crying about why you had one drink? Screw that. Why even
No,
bother?
it's crazy, man. That's the craziest thing about it. Like, I've had people tell me, they were like, I thought I was completely recovered. It's been like 2 years since I've had symptoms. And I went drinking with my buddies last night, and they get thrown into like a 4 or 5 or 6 month setback from having some alcohol. And sometimes like severe acute like symptoms too, right?
Yeah.
So I would say, just, if you want to play, if it really matters to you that much, then you should probably seek a psychiatrist or something, like, well, not one that's going to prescribe you benzos, maybe a psychologist,
Yeah, it's
right?
psychology. Yeah.
I think you need help. If you need to drink that bad, to the point where you're willing to risk it, then you
Right.
probably have other problems,
Yeah. But there's so many things like I found, like you were talking about with diet. Diet was huge for me, and taking out a lot of stuff. Like I had to go gluten free, and I don't have celiac, but for some reason gluten always hits me the wrong way, which sucks because there's so many good foods out there, but I would rather not suffer than eat gluten. So I mean, now I haven't had gluten in years. Could I probably eat a little bit of it? Yeah, I could probably build back up a little bit, but just not ready for it. But there's so many things. So I mean, I don't have a lot of things I eat per se, but you know, it took it took a huge amount of symptoms for me to say, okay, I need to cool it on the weird foods, and it helped a lot. It just helped a lot. I don't drink any weird sugary drinks. I mean, all I drink is water. You know, once in a while I'll drink something. You know, it's like I take chances. It's like because of natural flavors and stuff like that. And like I'll drink a like I'm drinking now, just like LaCroix, or what, fake LaCroix anyway. And it's like just plain water, you know, bubble water. Once in a while I'll get a flavored one, but that's like, for me, it's like pushing it, just doing that, just because I see natural flavors and I'm like, oh, I don't know what that is. Is it really natural? You know, but you know, that's diet's just super important. And it's again different for everybody. I've seen so many people be like, oh, I can't eat, you know, like I know we've talked about it, and I know you've made videos, recent video about eggs and quail eggs and stuff. It's like, okay, I can eat regular eggs and I don't have issues with it. A lot of people do. Now I have histamine issues. I should be having problems with eggs, but I don't. So it's
Yeah, it's
like
very individual.
I can't say why that happens, but if I eat a whole avocado, forget it. You know, I mean, it's
You're
just,
done. Yeah.
you know, so like I can eat a little tomato, cool. I eat a whole tomato, forget it. You know, so
Yeah.
it's like there's a lot of rules, and there's timing from it. If I'm feeling better, I can eat more things. If I'm feeling worse, those things will tear me apart. I probably won't be able to eat as many eggs as I do. It sucks, but it
Yeah.
is what it is, and you learn.
It's so individual, right? Like that's the thing. Everyone thinks they have the answers in benzo withdrawal because of what's happened to them. But I could
Yeah.
tell you like one food that is like the absolute worst. And I think it's because they are rather high histamine and high sugar. So it's kind of like a double whammy. But I think I told you about this. Like, when was it? It's been like a couple years now, but I had a big bowl of strawberries.
Oh
And
yeah.
one day, and I
That's
knew
superb.
that the sugar element, I didn't know there was a high histamine food, but I knew that the sugar element was probably going to set me back a little bit. But I went into the worst 2 week wave from having a bowl of strawberry.
See,
It was
what is
2 weeks
that about?
solid of like pure hell. And I talked to other people about it in the benzo group, and they're like, I eat strawberries every day and I'm fine. I've never noticed any symptoms. You know, I'm just like, well, it really depends on the person, you know? So
Yeah, yeah. I could pick apart many foods, but in this, you have to find out for yourself what works best and what doesn't work for you. And I wish, a lot of people say, what's the list of foods you can and cannot have? It's like, well, there's really not. I mean, there would be things I would suggest that might have alcohol in it. Don't eat that, or you know, like certain ingredients and stuff like that. I might suggest, but that doesn't mean anything really, because it's like some people can go out there and eat a pizza and not have a problem. You know, I mean, so it's like I don't want to put people against things they could easily eat. You know, so you know, I don't know. I
yeah.
just it's everybody's different. That's it.
I'll say this, yeah. Speaking about everybody being different, you know, I'd say that this might put me in a really bad light, and I'll probably lose some subscribers for this, but I
Oh,
think this is like a huge pet peeve for you and me, that like when we have people reach out to us and they're like a week or two into benzo withdrawal, and they're like, I've gone through the worst hell imaginable. Like this has been the worst 2 weeks of my life. It's very hard for me to hear that. Or sometimes when people might talk about benzo withdrawal, like, man, I had 3 weeks of benzo withdrawal and it was terrible, but I'm a survivor and they're out on the
oh
other
yeah,
side
yeah.
now. And it's
Well, that's
like,
not fair. You know, I mean,
yeah,
that's like somebody who's like been on heroin for 20 years and you come off of it and say it's 3 weeks later and they're like, I'm a survivor. But then another heroin addict's like, you know, 2 months later, and he's going to be pissed. You know, I think that's fair for somebody who's been sick for 6.5 years to be a little bitchy about somebody who's like healed in 2 weeks. You know, I
yeah,
mean, because it is, I mean, I always say everybody's got their, you know, every people only know what they know because they're their own persons. They don't know how anybody else has felt or like been through, you know, just but they know what they felt. And those 2 or 3 weeks were brutal. I'll give them that. I'll get it. It probably sucked. I mean, I get it. But for people who have dealt with it and it's never gone away, I try to tell people, imagine that worst withdrawal you've ever had, because most people have been through some sort of withdrawal. I'll say, think about how bad that was for you. Think about it 6 years later, still going on. How would you feel? It's
Yeah, it's kind of like somebody complaining about an ankle injury, to somebody who had to have one of their legs amputated, right? Like that's kind of the same type of
right.
thing, right?
It's like, yeah, an ankle injury sucks. We get it, but
Yeah.
you don't have a leg.
Yeah.
So,
Right. It's a kind of analogy for that. But you know what, though? I'm still really hopeful for the future. There have been some really good things that have come of all this experience, to be honest with you. Like on my good days now, like yesterday, I told you I had a decent day yesterday, and it wasn't amazing by any means. Like I didn't feel normal, but I felt normal compared to where I was at last week.
yeah,
And I just really appreciated it. I appreciate the people in my life. I was just emotional just listening to music yesterday. I felt really connected again
that's good.
to like nice things like that. And man, I'll tell you, like life on the other side of this, man, I've heard so many people say this, that when they make it to the other side, life is just like something it was way better than they ever had in their lives before benzo withdrawal.
Uh, that's what keeps me going as well. I think about that. I've heard that, and once in a while, I'll have a glimpse of it, and I love it. I always tell people, they'll be like, "Why are you still here? Basically, why are you still fighting this?" Then it's like, because I actually enjoy my life. I've always have. There's things I enjoy doing. And there's a lot of things I want to do in the future, and so I fight for it. I think we all deserve that. And plus, we have no idea what's going to happen in the end of our lives anyway. So it's like this, I'd rather have pain and suffering right now than absolutely nothing. So, I mean, it's like, until then, I still look forward to getting to the other side. And I hope I can be a success story, even though my success story might be 10 years later. I mean, I'd rather be like, yeah, I made it. Yeah, it took forever, but if I did it, so can you. I mean, if I managed, anybody can manage, I think, in this situation anyway.
Yeah. And I think that like at that point, like, again, you could achieve so much more with your life, and also like help other people, going through this. And you have been, even while you're sick, you're helping other people. So it's pretty amazing. But hope, it's like they say in Shawshank Redemption, like hope is the best of all things, and
Right.
I love that movie because it's just such a great analogy for what we've had to go through the last 6 years. And
True. It's true. You've quoted that movie many times. Yeah.
yeah, crawl through a big pile of shit to come out on the other side. But
It's true.
we do come out on the other side, and you and I, we're going to get that boat on the beach at the end of the movie there. And when
Well,
we're finally off this poison and we're able
that's
to, yeah.
that's the hopes. And I just, it as much as this sucks, it helps you not take things for granted, which, I mean, we all do, but I really did. And I always did. I enjoyed the things in my life, and I always appreciated, but I also took everything for granted as well. I always wanted more and more and more, and this and that. And it's like, now I look at these small things and I talk about how important they are to me, and people are like, what? It's like, it doesn't seem that big of a deal. It's like, yeah, but it is. That's the thing. You got to look at what you have and what you've done and where you're at, and be thankful for it, because we live one life. Well, as long as we know we do, and, try not to take it for granted and enjoy it. That's why if you make it to the other side, yeah, life will be great, because you're going to be living every day. How often do people live every day? So
That's exactly it. People, I think that's the whole gift of all this. And you have to look at the pros. You can't just be like, oh man, this whole thing sucks and it's for nothing. And like there are some pros to it, and um I mean, I wouldn't be talking to you here right now if I wasn't going through this. And this is something I enjoy. And I think that when I do have my good moments, I appreciate life so much more than I ever did before. And I think I was at that point. I think I've told you this story before, but I'll always remember this day because to me, it just signified where I was at in my life before this whole crap started. And literally, this was just a matter of weeks before I started going through this whole withdrawal process. But I remember it was it was in, I can't remember if it was like end of summer, maybe beginning of fall or something, but I was walking home from the subway and I see these old couples like walking around on a street because there's a retirement home there. And
Yeah.
they're just kind of like walking around and they're just kind of like looking at the trees and looking at like some flowers or something like that and kind of like enjoying nature or whatever. And I remember thinking to myself at the time, just in my own head, because this is how I used to think back then. I'd be like, what the hell are they looking at? You know? And I'm like, they're like in their 80s, you know, why are they looking at trees like they're so special or whatever, you know? Like I was actually thinking that in my head. I was like, why are they doing? They're just walking around. I mean, it seems like such a pointless life, you know, enjoying these stupid little things. And my mind was just so toxic at the time in a lot of ways, you know?
Yeah.
And now on my good days, I understand it. I understand it, you know, when I have a good day and everything is just so beautiful. I like the grass, the trees, you know, I hate to sound so
Yeah.
cheesy, but it's true. You know, if I actually like last fall, and this is partially something that really keeps me going. I mean, just one of many things that keep me going, but last fall I had a really good window for about 2 months and where I was having strings of days, even weeks, where I was feeling like not normal, but I don't know, 70%, 80%, you know. I was going through a really good time in my life. And before I started tapering again, and or not taper again, but the taper started to hit me. And I got a glimpse of what that life could look like for me, you know, once all this is done. And I was like, man, that's worth fighting for. That's worth fighting for. That is going to be, if I could live like that on a normal basis, all my worries would be over. Like I feel like all the small stuff, like even the big stuff, you know, like relationships ending or whatever, they just, I'm not to say it doesn't upset me, but they just slide off my back so much more easily than they did before going through all this stuff. You know, I don't sweat the small stuff that much anymore. And
Yeah. I could see
yeah,
that. Yeah. Stress. I mean, stress is definitely not as, I don't get stressed out about the tiny things anymore, which I always did. I would always get stressed out about little things. Now I just get stressed out about things that I should get stressed out about. And I mean, being in this position, of course, things are a little harder. So stress might be a little harsher. But yeah, I mean, I totally respect people that just kind of walk around and enjoy life every day and just don't sweat the small things. That's my plan. That's what
yeah,
I work on every day. Um, you know, get there when you feel better. It's a lot easier.
yeah, exactly. So I hope that like I know that we sort of have been bitching a little bit about how hard things have been, but you know, there's a lot of good things also, and there's a lot of hope and people, everyone makes it out at some point, you know, and they come out to a way better life on the other side. I was going to ask this one question. I should have asked this earlier before we wrap things up, but
Mhm.
if you could list off, and I hate to go over symptoms, but we're going to do it because everyone's going to
Okay.
ask. If you could list 3 symptoms in the last 6 years that you could have done without the most, what would they be?
Um, One is a symptom that's really hard to explain. That's in my head. It's not like it. But the only time I ever say it, it's like feels like I've been drugged on acid or something. It's a really weird unstable. It's like my brain is very unstable, and there's just I can't really fully explain it. But So when I went to doctors, I could never explain that symptom. But the mental stuff, I could really do without. I know that's kind of a wide array of symptoms saying mental stuff, but there's an overall feeling in my head, and how I see and perceive everything and whatever, that is easily the worst. Um, Second would be, I don't know, it's akathisia, but it's just different than what a lot of people like. A lot of people, when they think akathisia, they see people not being able to sit still and moving around a lot. But I've talked about this many times, and a lot of people say it's definitely a form of akathisia. And that's just where I have this inner restlessness in my body, but I don't need to move to make it go away. No, that's not, it's actually gets way worse when I move. So it's like this inner movement that is just torture. And the less I move, so it's kind of backwards. The less I move is the better it gets. So there's that. So I just call it akathisia. I can't say for sure if it is or not, but and the third, there's so many of them. There's so many, and they're all so terrible. There was a good time where the nerve pain was, I mean, it's better now, but like at one time, the nerve pain in my body was so bad. Yeah, I could do without that. But it wasn't muscle pain, but it was just absolute nerve pain. It was just horrific. But out of all of them, the brain stuff, yeah, that's the number one for me. I could really do without.
Yeah, I think that personally for me, and I'm not degrading the physical symptoms because I've had the nerve pain. Luckily for me, I was very lucky in that sense. The nerve pain only lasted about 3-4 weeks for me in the beginning, and it went away and it never came back, which
That's
I got very lucky on that one. I've had all sorts of other things like lightning bolts shooting through my body and everything like that.
right,
But
right. Yeah, that's fun too. Yeah, yeah.
you know, like yeah, the heart palpitations, all that stuff, of course. But I would say
Yeah.
for me that the neurological symptoms, the mental symptoms are definitely the worst, especially when
Yeah.
you have um I would say there's sort of the combination of anxiety and brain fog. The two of those together are really bad. I think anxiety, when your anxiety is really amped up and it's like a 10 out of 10, I think that might be the worst.
Okay, yeah, I agree with that one too. See, it's not a very fair question because when some of these get really bad, it's just absolutely horrific. I mean, like when my anxiety gets to its tops, it just makes everything so unbearable and unlivable that
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, you're right. That one is
And people would say akathisia, but I think akathisia is like almost like a form of anxiety. I'd say it's kind of under the same umbrella to some degree. Um, but I would say for me also, I don't think these are the worst symptoms, but I think like the vision stuff, I know you've had some really bad stuff with that, but the vision stuff has been the longest lasting for me. It's been from day one up until now. And it's like I have good days where my visions is completely fine, but it's so up and down. You know, I could go weeks at a time with blurred vision and my vision's all disoriented and stuff, and it just makes everything so much worse, you know. So I would say that's a bad one.
oh, and depersonalization, that's a killer. I mean, I've had
Yeah.
that for a good portion of my life, but it was at a level unlike after like getting off benzos. That was so ridiculous. And some days it's still really bad. You know, I mean, it's always there. It never goes away. I mean, it hasn't gone away from me in probably 30 years. But I mean, in general, I know my baseline on that, and benzos killed that. So
Mm.
if I could take away depersonalization and anxiety, it'd be pretty sweet.
Yeah. And then one that's been really bad for me, it was never something that was bad for me in benzo withdrawal, but going through Cymbalta withdrawal, it's been absolutely brutal as intrusive thoughts.
Yeah.
The intrusive thoughts, they started for me about a year ago, and I literally just woke up with them one day. And that was like after I did my final taper, my final sort of bigger taper. of Cymbalta, and it just hit me like a ton of bricks, just the weird dark images in my head and
Or,
these weird obsessive type thoughts in my head that were just really, really dark, and the nightmares. And it's that is a horrible one. But I can tell you, when I was really, especially after I started going through Cymbalta withdrawal again, I had the combination of anxiety, brain fog, and intrusive thoughts, and then DPDR and derealization, depersonalization sort of were thrown in the mix, maybe 2 or 3 days of the week kind of thing. And it was just like, it was pure insanity, man, when you have that cascade of symptoms. And that's what I was going through last week with the virus too, so.
yeah, it takes a while. And your nervous system will go up and down. I mean, like, I would get a major wave and it'll calm down a little bit, then it'll come back and so on. I mean, it's just like tapering. It's just brutal. So it's, I'm holding out as much as I can. Got to taper eventually. So, yeah.
Exactly. Well, hey, man, I'm going to follow up with a video. Like I said, I'm going to be a guinea pig for you guys. Cromolyn Sodium. We'll see how it goes. I don't know anyone who's been taking this in the benzo world, but I'm taking it. We'll see how that goes. But it was really cool catching up with you, man. And I'm glad that things have calmed down a little bit for you. And
yeah,
I highly suggest you guys check out Dan's channel. I'm going to link it down below. What's your channel name again? Dan in Recovery, right? Dan in Recovery.
I don't promote it that much, but people can come join. I'm not on there too much, but enough just to talk about what's going on. I'm not too personal, but I talk about what's going on, and I like to answer people's questions, and and I go on live. That's mostly what I do. So if they go to my videos, usually it doesn't show many videos until you click like the ones that were live. I don't know how YouTube works exactly, but sometimes they get hidden. But still, yeah, come join, say hello.
Yeah, you should. Yeah, Dan's videos have really helped me, struggle and not feel so like alone with my symptoms, because I can really relate to your story. And I think it's kind of strange and like really cool at the same time when people reach out to me and feel like they could relate to me. And it's nice that helps them, that they feel like they have someone they could relate to, because again, it's like a very lonely process, right? So
it is. I mean, it's one of these things that it's so rare, and doctors don't, most doctors don't believe what's going on with you. So to find people that you can relate to, you can ask questions to, even though I can't answer them all, it's nice to know that, you're not alone. And that's really important.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool, guys. Well, check out Dan's channel. Hopefully we'll have Dan back probably in a few months, and we could shoot the hay again, and just hopefully, we'll be in an even better place than we are. So if you guys have any questions, let us know. Comment, like, subscribe, do all the good stuff. Thanks so much, guys.